Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to the final part in our video series on budget deficits and fiscal policy. In this video, we're going to go through a debt crisis model. Let's go. So in this video, we're discussing the idea of a debt crisis where governments, the guarantor of last resort, is unable to pay back their debts. The term crisis in economics broadly means when our institutions don't work the way they should, or they behave in a way that is unexpected, which abruptly ends any sort of trade or transaction, right? Thus affecting, people that engage in the rest of the economy than would take place in the case if those institutions were stable. The goal of this video is to understand what leads to a debt crisis, what makes them more likely, and what we can do to prevent them. So the story of our model is as follows. A government has debt of amount D that is due, right? It has no funds immediately available, so it wants to roll this debt over by issuing new debt of that amount D to pay off its current debt. Investors will hold that debt for one period and are paid back an amount of capital RD, where this capital R term we call our interest rate factor, which is just 1 plus the real rate of return, lowercase r. It will obtain tax revenues to pay off this newly issued debt, so it wants its investors who are risk neutral to hold their debt for one period, which after that they will get paid back. Tax revenues T are collected at random, with a CDF F being continuous. So there is uncertainty with regards to the amount of taxes that government is able to go and elicit from its citizens. If this capital T term, right, tax revenues, is greater than the debt that is owed to their creditors, that means the debt that they rolled over, the government pays back its investors. If T, however, is less than this capital RD, right, then the government defaults. This is what we mean by a debt crisis, that meaning that they can't go and pay back their debts. This is a all or nothing type deal in this model, just to go and make things, tractable. So they can't pay back only part of their debt or pay back a part of their, base of investors. It's either all or nothing. So mathematically, the model is actually really simple. It's characterized by two equations, or really two terms, right? The probability of default, which is pi, and the interest rate factor r, right, which we've defined previously as 1 plus the real rate of return. Investors are risk neutral, so the expected payoff of holding debt must be the same as the risk-free payoff R. This is communicated in the following equation down here below, where we have 1 minus the probability of default. What this is really interpreted as the probability of paying back times this interest rate factor must be equal to the risk-free rate, because that's done with certainty. And further algebra reveals that we have a nice relationship that goes and defines our probability of default. We'll see that as this interest rate factor, right, which the government is in control of, right, as that tends to infinity, the probability of default converges to 1, which makes sense. Often we'll go and write this as pi is on this CDF as determined by RD, right, which is this newly issued debt here. So in order to start thinking about what are implications of our short little model there is, let's go and draw some pictures. So the first picture I want to go and show you is this condition required to go and hold debt, where we have our R bar here, right? That is our risk-free rate. And we see that in order to go and hold, debt, given, your likelihood of, default pi, you're going to require more and more and more. And this is going to be a concave shape that we go and we have here. So in terms of thinking about our probability of default, right, this is our government's perspective now, because they are going and taking on this debt. They have this nice logistic looking curve, and they have a lower bound and upper bound, right, for reference to defaulting, right? And for this lower bound, it doesn't really matter. Anything that they go and they collect will be for sure taken, right? Anything less than this. This is where we start going and ending up with minuscule probabilities of default. And here at this point there, right? Like anything beyond here, like the government is going to default right there. Putting these pictures together, we can visualize our equilibrium concept characterized by our pi term. Multiple equilibria are present, with B being unstable and A being the stable one. The reason why B is unstable because it's not necessarily true that by going and offering interest rate B, that they'll be able to go and elicit those funds, while at A, it is true that they'll be able to go and do that. Now, let's go and think about what happens when we change this safe interest rate factor, right? Moving from R bar to R bar 1, right? So we're shifting this blue curve to this little bit of a darker blue curve, and we see a shift in our equilibria points, right? They're getting a little bit closer together now, but again, we're still ending up with the story where our lower one is going to be more stable than the higher one here. Further pushing that, we can go and see that if our safe interest rate is too high, right, then no one would want to go and hold any government debt at any amount there, because they have a safer option out there. In this situation, no one will hold debt. So this is our video series on really our model of a debt crisis, and I hope throughout this whole series you ended up getting a better understanding of budget constraints, government debt, and putting those ideas in your mind. I hope this video helps. Take care.